Hello, everyone, and welcome to this incredible interview. We don't even know if it's incredible yet, but I've got high hopes for this interview with with Carrie Wren. We're going to be talking about her podcast, which is a fantastic project that she has launched into this world, in part thanks to the mastermind, in part thanks to her own badassery and the way she gets amazingly supported. But you're about to hear about all of that on this interview today. So, Carrie, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to chat with you about your podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So let's start with what is it? What is the podcast and who is it for?
My podcast is called From Good Girl to Grown Ass Woman. And this is a fabulous listening opportunity for women who are already living great lives, and those lives may have been constructed by other people's rules or social expectations and norms and things like that. And so it's for folks who are interested in writing their own script going forward and really creating lives and professional lives and relationships that light them up to their core.
I love it. So nothing that is prescribed, but all just getting in touch with your values, living by what means the most to you, and having the juiciest, most authentic life that you can. Is that right?
Well said. Yes, it is.
Amazing. Fantastic. So, where did this idea for the podcast come from?
The idea for the podcast came from my brain and my heart and my gut. And it's something that has occurred to me for probably years, if I'm being honest. And it's one of those things that seem like probably a good idea, seem like something that could add meaning and value to the world. And um, and I just had not actually moved it forward from a thought or an idea or a hope into being an actual thing until I think it was, if my timeline's correct, maybe month 3 of the mastermind.
Was that month three of the mastermind this year or last year? Because you've done it twice. So
Yes,
yeah, which year
this
was it?
year.
This
This
year.
year.
Okay. I
Mhm.
could have sworn that you were talking about it last year. No?
I probably was.
Okay. Okay, so let's zoom in on that because how many of us have had a good idea that we've sat on for a while and then never done, but you did it. So
Yeah.
how did you finally get over the edge to making it real?
Yeah. So as I reflect back, there were a couple of internal obstacles. So things that weren't actually in my way, like in the world, but things that were like internal in my thoughts that were barriers. So one of those was perfectionism. It's one of those things like, it has to be just right. It has to be everything has to be in place. It has to be, you know, Brene Brown quality immediately. And so perfectionism was in the way, and also kind of maybe a fear or simply a vulnerability around being seen, being visible, actually having a voice that is accessible to people. That was really kind of uncomfortable for me. It was outside of my comfort zone. Yeah.
So you had these internal obstacles. What helped you get through them?
Yeah. So I, I'll go ahead and attribute it to the mastermind. There were conversations with other folks in the group who believed in my idea really before I did, or believed in its viability and its ability to make a meaningful difference for people. And so having those conversations where other folks are like, "Oh yeah, that's great. You do it yesterday. Like why is that not yet a thing?" So that was part of it. And also just doing the little bit of nitty-gritty of actually creating the the technology, the platforms, getting those things into place, which I will say is made more accessible when there's accountability in place, when there are folks who are going to be asking me, hey, so you said that you were going to get the domain name by X date. Did you do that? So just some of those nitty gritty kind of things that left to my own devices. Again, it could be years. I could be sitting here right now and not have created a podcast that impacts people, and makes a difference for people. And yet there it is in the world because I had other people under me and around me and behind me.
I think I'm remembering a conversation where we were talking about your perfectionism and we're like, why don't you just make that the first episode or something? And like
In
it became the first
fact,
episode, didn't
that's
it?
correct.
Oh my
It's correct. It's called perfection paralysis, how this podcast almost didn't happen.
God.
That's the first episode.
I mean,
And
perfect.
yep, ironically, yes.
So, teaser for any of you out there that are also like, maybe it's perfectionism in my way.
Mm.
There are some really fabulous tidbits. And it was amazing hearing Carrie's process because, this podcast gets released and we've been waiting for it. And we know that, she's like, I see the things that could be better. And we listened to it and everybody said, this is amazing. Like what you're crazy. Like this is amazing. So
Yeah.
we just hold ourselves to such a crazy high standard. And even if people are going to get massive value out of what we're contributing to the world, we can still hold ourselves back. So I'm so glad that you brought it into the world and folks in the mastermind still wait for the episodes to drop. So it's not even just oh, we support you because we're nice. It's like wow, there's a lot of value in what you're sharing with the world. Do you
Mm.
have a favorite episode, Carrie?
Oh my gosh. Isn't this like asking me if I have a favorite child? I don't have children, but I can imagine. I will say one of my more vulnerable episodes is about, I don't recall the title, but the theme and the story of the podcast is "You're Too Much." And how I interpreted messages from like a little person, like a little girl of "You're too much." And so I learned to tone it down. I learned to be quiet. I learned to dress in a certain way based on getting that feedback from people in the world. And I hear all the time from women that they're getting these messages of "you're too much." And so they like tuck it in and push it down and become more um, palatable for other people. And it's just, it's time for us to not do that anymore. It's time for me to not do that anymore. It's time for other people to not do that anymore. So that was probably the most vulnerable one for me.
Very cool. What is your vision for the podcast?
Do you know Dan Savage? He has a podcast called Savage Love. It's like
I've heard of
sex and relationships. And this human has been around for, I think, like 18 years. Okay. So, advice columnist, relationship expert, expert, which is that really a sexpert? Probably. Um, so he just has this massive impact on people, specifically in that domain of love and sex and relationships. And he's straightforward, he's kind, he's candid, and he makes a difference for people. And then from his platform, he's also able to have influence politically, socially, things like this. So my vision is to have that kind of impact in what, empowerment, in leadership for women. So if you know anyone who
Or maybe
happens
if
to
anybody
be
listening is like a woman and wants their lives to be even better,
yeah,
you may want to check out this podcast. You might even want to share
yeah,
it with your girlfriends, you know?
yeah. I
Yeah.
actually hear that a lot from clients or from my own friends or, just people in my community like, oh my gosh, thank you for X episode. I sent it to my sister or I sent it to my daughter, I sent it to my mom, and it really is an honor that there's that kind of meaning for people that they want other people to have access to it as well.
Yes. I just had a vision of women waiting for your next episode to drop, like they wait for their favorite television shows to drop. Like how some of us wait for The Bachelor to drop or the Sex and the City movie to
Oh,
drop or whatever, whatever amazing thing that people watch. Like, like it's up, it's up. I'm gonna send it. Like, let's talk about it. Um,
that's so fun.
yeah,
Like people do watch parties. It could be a listen party. How about that?
exactly,
Cocktails. There could be
exactly.
cocktails.
Oof, that might need to be a recommendation at the end of the next podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Like some people
So
have book
great.
clubs. Why not have a podcast club? Really
Yes.
cool ideas.
Yes.
Cool. Well, it's been such an honor to get to see how this has unfolded. I know it's going to grow. I hope everybody watching checks it out. Where can they find it if they want to listen?
Everywhere, literally everywhere, from good girl to grown ass woman is, Spotify, Apple, etc., all of the places that people listen to the podcasts. And you can also link from my website. It's carriewren.com. It's my first name and my last name.com. There's an actual tab that says podcast, and you can listen on there also.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Carrie, for being with us and sharing your journey. And I hope that all of you again go and check out From Good Girl to Grown Ass Woman.
Thanks, Meg.